Howdy, ladies and gentlemen. This is Paul, the Redneck Thinker. Thomas Jefferson said, "If you want something you've never had, you must be willing to do something you've never done." Benjamin Franklin said, "Without continual growth and progress, such words as improvement, achievement, and success have no meaning." Basically, get off your duff and get to work. Improve yourself. Now then, this episode, or whatever you want to call it, I'm going to cover a couple of things. And if you like what I say, like, subscribe, comment, all that happy rigmarole. Now, let's see here. I'm going to first start out by telling you some news, but after that, I'm going to cover some changes that are coming because I have been researching, and that whole Thomas Jefferson, if you want something you've never had, you must be willing to do something you've never done. I am fixing to start learning some uh, film editing because I'm going to make some changes there. And the whole Benjamin Franklin, without continual growth and progress, such words as improvement, achievement, and success have no meaning. I'm going to be doing that. But let's get to let's get to what my little news thing that I'm going to talk about first. Recently, in Virginia Beach, they saved a Confederate monument. Now, yes, I'm a redneck from backwoods Tennessee, and I know for a fact that one of the people in my family was well known on the Confederate side. His name was Joshua Whitehurst. Jesse Whitehurst. Pardon me. I got that one completely mixed up. Jesse Whitehurst. He was a photographer. Well, tintype. He they didn't take photographs the same way we do now. But he took photographs of all the famous folks. He was the Matthew Brady of the Confederacy in a way. And after the Civil War, he opened up his own studios and took photographs of a few famous people. His photographs go for thousands upon thousands of dollars. What this guy did was pretty amazing for his time frame. And like I said, he was a Matthew Brady of the Confederacy. But the let me tell you exactly what happened. They were fixing to tear down this monument, just this little statue in the middle of a place that nobody paid attention to. But the local Confederate reenactment group got with them, and it took several years to talk them into letting this group take this monument and put it on private property so that this statue could be kept. And you're going, "Oh, you're one of those lost cause people." No, actually I'm not. I don't like the idea of monuments being torn down too often. Now, the Lenin, the getting rid of the ones for Lenin and Stalin and those kind of folks, I have no problems with. Not necessarily because I agree with monuments being torn down. It's the simple fact of that those were monsters. Uh, I think Lenin was less of a monster than a lot of people think, but at the same time, he was still a monster. The reason that I don't like the Confederate monuments, or for that matter, I don't want to see monuments of Northern folks getting torn down that took part in the Confederacy, or I mean, took part not in the Confederacy, but in the Civil War, is because I believe that they should be there for us to reflect on what occurred. Now, when they created the Constitution, they put in it all kinds of stuff dealing with slavery that most people don't agree with today. It's because it was such a hot topic. They didn't want to have to fight each other. They wanted to create consensus, to create a government that could fix itself. And they did. We took time to fix ourselves, but slavery remained such a nasty topic that it took the lives of hundreds of thousands of Americans. Now, it wasn't just over slavery. Most people, you're going to hear a whole bunch of folks complain, and they'll come back and say, "Well, he doesn't." Most of the folks that fought for the Confederacy didn't own slavery, or didn't own slaves. Sorry, they grew up in a world in which the United States fine was what it was, but the ultimate authority in most people's lives back then was their state. Their home was their state. They didn't see themselves completely as American. If you were from Tennessee, you saw yourself as a Tennessean. If you were from Ohio, you saw yourself as an Ohioan. This is how people thought. This is how certain people were able to lead us into the Civil War. It was mostly by propaganda and by a bunch of people that didn't care about common sense. I am not a fan of Jefferson Davis. I think I've said it before to y'all, but I am not a fan of Jefferson Davis in any way, shape, or form. I think that Yankee should have stayed up north and stayed being a nobody. But he got a chance to go to West Point, got a chance to be several important positions within the government. He got to be a politician, and he got to be up there for so many folks. Well, I ain't a fan of his. I think that other than his relationship with Benjamin Judah, he had no redeeming qualities. I don't like that man. Most people want to attack Robert E. Lee. Now, if you pay attention to Robert E. Lee, if Virginia had not seceded, he would have gladly led the forces of the United States. Think back to what I just said earlier. People thought that their home state was who they owed their loyalty to, not to the United States. States' rights was still an important message. Still kind of is today. But states' rights, when it takes you forever to travel to places, most of these folks didn't know anything about New York City. They didn't know anything about San Francisco. Heck, they didn't know anything about California. They knew their little part of the world, which was their community. Maybe they knew a few of the outlying communities, but they just knew their community. Very few people that were American saw a war. Now, there were quite a few. Ulysses S. Grant, Robert E. Lee, to be exact, and a few others, had been in the Mexican-American War. And that had been kind of nasty. So they understood war. But most of these folks marched off to war thinking, oh, we're going to do all these things. We're going to do this glorious chivalric thing. Yeah, no. Like I said, hundreds of thousands of Americans died because of this war. And when I see a monument, it don't matter, Confederate, Union, whatever. When I see a Civil War monument, I get to thinking about these things. I think about the useless things that occurred. But I also think about the fact that blacks were no longer slaves on paper. It took decades for them to be more than what they were. Now, there were a lot of them that were that way. There were some that were able to rise up out of their condition. But to put a point on it, there were blacks that willingly served the Confederate military because they were serving their home. They were serving beside people that were from their home. This is the way that people thought. Slavery was a horrible thing. I am not saying that slavery was not a horrible thing. But if you take into consideration the mindset of the folks that were fighting that war, it takes on a whole new dimension than the one-sided garbage that they try to teach you so often nowadays. There are a few good teachers that try to teach you the truth, but everybody keeps trying to tell you that it was a one-sided issue. No, it wasn't. Slavery was at the heart of it, sure, but there was far more to it than that. And it's not just states' rights, it was propaganda, even though it wasn't called propaganda then, led us people into making bad decisions. It was, when you study the whole thing, it becomes something so far more than just an issue over slavery. It becomes something that if we study it, maybe, just maybe, we will stop the stupidity in this country. But you have groups like the NEA saying that anybody that disagrees with them are their enemies. Not their opponents, not people that disagree with them. No, they call them enemies. You've got folks on the conservative side that call those that are willing to stand up on an issue enemies, even if that person is conservative. The conservative movement has gotten so there are so many people that are calling themselves conservative that aren't conservative. They're not Democrats. That's all they are. I've said it once and I'm going to say it again. I'm going to keep saying it. The Republican Party is the not Democrat Party. That's all it is. And you've got so many people that claim to be conservative that have no push for freedom. They're not middle of the road. They're for big government, but as long as it suits whatever their desires are. All of these people are pushing us into something that we don't need. I don't want to see violence. I got a son in this world, and I don't want to see him have to deal with the violence that is going to come. Right now, I'm not seeing enough people fighting to stop it. Now, Charlie Kirk, I've listened to him. Charlie Kirk is trying. I hope you realize I'm trying. We need to have those monuments up to remind us that it will take lives. This time around, it will take far more than hundreds of thousands of lives. There will be millions of people lost if we do the stupidity that we're headed towards. And let me tell you something. It will be brutal. It will be nasty. And this time it won't just be the Democrats' fault that lead us to this. Democrats are the primary reason that we ended up in the Civil War. This time around, while the Democrats are going to be on one side of it, we've got a whole bunch of folks that call themselves Republican, others call themselves Libertarian, that think that they're conservative, and they're not. You've got people within the conservative movement that are actively working to harm the conservative movement. They don't want to help conservatives that are trying to do what is necessary, that are trying to move up, trying to get the word out about what the truth is. It takes some work to get around. These folks, they only want established folks to have their news published. They don't want to help the folks coming up. But they'll listen to the folks that lie to you. There are so many folks that claim to be conservative. When you read what they write, they're lying to you. Those folks will get in some of these groups. And no, I've only got like one group I've got this problem with. And it's not that it's affecting me. What it's doing is causing me to realize this is what's happening within the conservative movement. Because we've got a whole bunch of folks that claim to be conservative that aren't. We've got a whole bunch of folks that aren't for conservative ideals. You've got a whole bunch of folks on the Democrat side that are lying to everybody, including other liberals. In other words, you've got those folks that are wanting to work together to fix the issues, and even Samuel Adams realized this. You have to compromise in a good way, not in a nasty way. You have to compromise every now and then. And on freedom, as long as you're getting freedom, as long as you are getting things in place to fight for freedom, yes, you can do a little bit of compromise. You can't compromise by giving everything that those that don't want freedom want. You can't compromise away freedom. So when you hear me talk about compromise, I'm not talking about giving away our freedoms. I'm talking about, okay, somebody right now is a little iffy about going so far on cuts. Okay, fine. As long as we get the cuts. As long as we're working towards those cuts. As long as we're able to show that those cuts are necessary in the government. And that's going to give us freedom right there. But we've got to start working together. Those of us that are wanting to avoid the stupidity, or at least push it back long enough that we can find other solutions And that is what those Confederate monuments, that is, being from the South, that's what I see are the Confederate monuments. That's what I get to thinking about. I get to thinking about Eli Parker, the Native American. He was Seneca, that was on the staff of General Grant. Robert E. Lee first thought he was black because he was so dark-skinned. Then he was told, no, he's a Seneca war chief. And he said, well, it's good to see a real American here. And Eli Parker looked at him and went, we're all real Americans here. I think about him. I've been in the bedroom that U.S. Grant stayed at while the Confederate forces were at Appomattox. The Union forces were in Farmville, Virginia. Yes, I'm well aware that there was a game called Farmville. There is an actual city, well, town, in Virginia. It's in Prince Edward County. It's called Farmville, Virginia. Fascinating town. There is Hampton-Sydney University just outside of Farmville. And there's Longwood University inside of Farmville. Right at Longwood, there is a guest house, and in it's got the bedroom that Ulysses S. Grant stayed at the night before he went to go meet Robert E. Lee at Appomattox. I've stayed in that guest house, and I've gotten to see the bedroom. I didn't get to stay in the bedroom, but I got to see the bedroom. And I got to thinking, even then, this was years ago, of these things. So, keeping these monuments out is very necessary. Not because I want to honor the things that were being fought for in the South, but because I want people to think. Most of the people that are wanting them torn down are Democrat, and they don't want us thinking about the fact that it was Democrats that started the war, and it was Democrats who caused the South to be as pathetic as it was. I love being in the South. I do. But it doesn't mean that I don't realize that we have a history here in the South that we need to contemplate. And so I do. Thus, I'm a redneck who thinks. Now then, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to be making some changes soon. Well, actually, I'm going to start working on it tonight. I've been working on a few things here and there. And I am going to be posting, even though I'm still going to be posting to Rumble, to all the different groups, I'm going to be posting to YouTube. If y'all like my video, like and subscribe, please. I want to grow my YouTube and my Rumble channel. The reason that I am waiting on my Rumble is because I am able to get monetized on Rumble, but it took 6 days, and I had to contact them and go, hey, y'all said up to 5 days. It's at 6-day mark, and y'all still ain't monetized my video. I am going to write articles based around my articles, or based around my videos, the news portion of my videos. When I have news videos, I am going to post articles, and I'm going to post the Rumble. But I'm going to wait until they're monetized to write about them. So, I am hoping to get all this fixed. So, I'm going to post the YouTube so I can grow my YouTube right now. But, the videos that I'm going to do, I am going to learn film editing. I ain't ever done film editing a day in my life. See, part of my problem is I've been able to create websites for 30 years. I know how to make a website. I don't need an editor. I can code in HTML and CSS. I can even do JavaScript. But my problem is that I don't do things pretty. Seriously, I don't do things that are pretty. They look, no matter how professional that I do all my HTML and CSS and JavaScript, it don't look pretty or professional. Well, it does kind of look professional, but it looks simple. And people want pretty. Well, I'm going to attempt to make professional looking. It's going to take a lot of practice. I'm going to try to make professional looking videos. I'm going to get away from Podbean. And I'm going to focus on Rumble and YouTube for my videos. I'm going to make them videos, not podcasts. It's going to take me a minute to get all this right. And I hope that y'all stick around for all of it. It's definitely going to take me a minute. I might still post to Podbean. I might still work on increasing my Podbean and post different videos onto my YouTube. I ain't figured that out yet. I'm still working on it, ladies and gentlemen. I'm still trying to figure out how I'm going to do everything. But I'm going to start working on film editing. I am going to have to learn how to do this. This old redneck dog, and yes, I was a Marine, so I am a Marine. We are called devil dogs, so I can call myself a dog and mean it. I am a Teufelshunden. This old dog has got to learn some new tricks. I hope that y'all understand that it's going to take me a minute. Because this is some high-tech redneck stuff. And while I am a high-tech redneck on a lot of things, I ain't a high-tech redneck on this. I got to learn how to make it pretty and professional and all that stuff. So my early videos might not be all that pretty. Might not be all that professional looking, but I'm going to work on it. Because, as I say at the beginning, if you want something you've never had, you must be willing to do something you've never done. And without continual growth and progress, such words as improvement, achievement, and success have no meaning. It's like the third time I've said those words today. But that's what I'm going to go with. So, ladies and gentlemen, I am hoping that I can get all this figured out. And I hope that y'all like what I'm fixing to start doing. And I hope that I said some things that y'all understand. So, this is Paul, the Redneck Thinker. Y'all have a good day.